Having looked at what a CDS is and how it works, let us now look at the key elements that make up a CDS contract. Reference entity is something we've already discussed. It's the underlying entity on which one is buying or selling credit protection through a CDS. So if you buy the CDS of Microsoft, then Microsoft is the reference entity. The reference entity can either be a corporation like Microsoft, or a sovereign, for example, Venezuela, or a municipal reference entity, for example, the city of San Francisco. Now, a CDS contract can have either one reference entity or multiple reference entities. This brings us to an important distinction between single name and multi-name CDS. Single name CDS has only one reference entity, for example, the CDS on Microsoft. A multi-name CDS, on the other hand, references multiple reference entities. Now, multi-name CDS is inherently more complex than its single-name counterpart. That is why we will deal with it later when we look at the different varieties of CDS. After looking at the reference entity, we will now look at another important term, reference obligation. What is that? Well, as the name suggests, it's an obligation, either a bond or a loan, that is issued by the reference entity. But why is it so important? Because the reference obligation sets the seniority of the credit exposure in the contract. Now what that means is, if you bought a CDS where the reference obligation is an unsecured bond, then after a credit event, you can deliver any other unsecured bond of the company, or you can deliver a bond that is senior in rank to that unsecured bond, which means you can deliver a secured bond of the same company too, because it is senior to the unsecured bond in the capital structure. Likewise, if a subordinated bond is chosen as a reference obligation, then along with any other subordinated bond, an unsecured or secured bond can also be delivered to settle the CDS, because the unsecured or secured bonds are senior in the capital structure to that subordinated bond. In essence, therefore, the purpose of reference obligation is this. It tells the buyer the minimum seniority of the debt that can be delivered in the CDS auction if there is a default. And senior unsecured bonds are usually the most common reference obligations that are found in the CDS market. At this stage, it must be clear to you that a reference obligation does not have to be the deliverable obligation, which means you need not deliver that exact bond or loan that the CDS contract references. You can deliver any obligation ranking equally or senior to the reference obligation. Next is credit event. It is an event that triggers a payout on the CDS contract. An event that forces the CDS seller to pay the buyer. For example, a default is a credit event. Now, default is only one of the several types of credit events. The more common ones are bankruptcy and restructuring, along with government intervention. We will see these different types of credit events in detail at a later stage. But for now, you should know that credit events are specific events that are predefined in the terms of a CDS contract. When any of these events take place, it triggers a payout on the CDS. Notional amount. It is the predetermined sum of money that the CDS seller agrees to pay the buyer if the credit event takes place. Well, in reality, the seller actually pays the notional amount less any recovery value of the debt. You can think of notional amount as the face value of the CDS or the sum insured. Most CDS have notional amounts in the $10 to $20 million range. CDS spread, or simply the spread, is what determines the cost of protection, the quarterly premium payments made by the buyer. In the market, CDS contracts are quoted in terms of spread or basis points. As you know, 1 basis point equals 100 of a percentage point, or 100 basis points equals 1%. So if a CDS contract has a notional amount of $10 million and a spread of 200 basis points, which equals 2%, then the annual premium a CDS buyer pays is 2% of $10 million or 200,000. And the quarterly premium therefore works out to $50,000. CDS contracts usually have maturities of 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and 30 years. Of these, 5-year CDS is the most commonly traded and therefore the most liquid, followed by the 10-year. Lastly, CDS trades in all major currencies of the world, but most common are the ones denominated in US dollars and euros.